environment, it's a very important issue. That heritage and how you can care of it is a very important issue. And that it's possible to profit in a better way the experience and what the different Goans around the world are doing in Europe, in the United States of America, in Asia, all over the world. We are all over the world. And of course I know there are some initiatives that are linking Goa. But I think we can do it better. I would like to help in some issues if possible, but it depends not on me. It depends if someone really wants to. Well, I want to say something else, but I can say it later.
So Xavier just mentioned that there are some issues that he could help, and yesterday Roanna was also mentioning that ways of belonging also has certain amount of reciprocity that is required. And so could you just reflect, I would love to hear what reciprocity is sort of expected or assumed in this ways of belonging that we sort of articulate.
I guess what I meant by belonging actually requires reciprocity is that it's fine for me to say, yeah, I'm Goan, and claim Goanness, but does Goa claim me? You know, it has to work both ways. It's a question that that has been asked and answered in many ways in Australia as well, where some people say, oh, I have a connection. People who are not indigenous say, I have a connection with the land. You know, I love the land. I love Australia. I love the land. My family have been here for generations. So I'm like the indigenous people. I'm Aboriginal. But do the Aboriginal people claim you? You know, have you faced the trauma? Have you been at the coalface of oppression for centuries? So that belonging it's complex. It's wonderful to feel like you belong somewhere, and to feel that belonging is reciprocated from the people you claim to belong to, the place you claim to belong to. It's not an easy, I guess, label to say I belong here. It is wonderful, but it's also complicated as well.
I agree with what Roanna said, and I must say that I don't need exactly any kind of challenge coming from Goa to feel myself belonging, a part of me at least, to Goa. Because I have human roots, and if you want it or not, a part of it belongs to me. But at the same time, the actualization of the way of belonging is very important. And of course, the invitation to be here at GALF 2016, it's a way of feeling in another way of belonging, having a participation in the contemporary life of Goa. Because when I came here, visiting my family for a few days of tourism, it's another thing. I'm not connected with what's happening in Goa. It's more enjoying the family and enjoying the beach and the food, and it's enough. It's possible to do more than that. And but that part of belonging, you couldn't impose it. You want someone want you or not. Then in my case, I have no reason to impose myself. But of course, if I can belong in a deeper way, I'm interested in it. Because 2 years ago I was here in official position, and at that moment I said that we must understand that Goa is a part of Indian Union. Goa and the relation of Portugal is with India. Goa is a part of it. Sometimes in the past, some people still had a kind of remembrance of a past that is go away and forget it. There are new Portugal now, and Goa is a part of the Indian Union. Then we must deal in that way, because the relation between nations at the national level. But nevertheless, Goa can connect directly with different parts of the world, because now the globalization is a reality. Assuming that in contemporary times in Europe we are very interested in connect with India, and of course we can learn a lot from each other, and I really hope we can develop that connection in a contemporary way.
Just drawing from your globalization, the reference to the globalization. I mean, there is obviously a rapidly globalizing scenario that all of us are experiencing. But at the same time, you would see how mobilities of certain people or certain races are sort of curtailed. And, and there are indirect or direct restrictions put on who can be globally circulated, right? So, as a cultural diplomat, I think probably would want to reflect, and also, Roanna, how does these tensions of, there's one thing about able to go to a place or move to a place and be a diaspora, and it's also one thing to be getting included into the place where you call your home, the new home. So, could you just reflect on these tensions? I mean, I think you also mentioned some of these things in your speech yesterday. How, in this sort of, what should I say? And I'm referencing more to this whole curtailment or like the restrictions that are being sort of put indirectly on mobility of people.
I guess you would have more erudite things to say, but just from my own experience, I feel that Indians, because of our population, etc., and Orientalist attitudes, racist attitudes from white countries, we have very little access to things like working holiday visas that the Americans, the Canadians, the Australians, the Japanese even have. So young people in India, if we want adventure, if you were in the US or the UK or in Canada, Australia, if you're a young person, you want to see the world, you apply for a working holiday visa. You go overseas, you work for 3 months, come back, etc. That privilege is not extended to Indians. So one way out is the student visa. So a lot of people I know, myself included, the student visa to go to places like Australia, which is booming now, the education market is booming for Indians to go to Australia. One of the reasons is, yes, to study and expand your intellectual horizons, but it's also, it's an adventure. It's, an adventure visa, although it's not called like that. So in terms of, and again, there's a huge class element, of course, because it's only people who can afford those fees to apply for those student visas and the student fees, which is what percentage of it is that, like 0. At least maybe the top 10% income earners in this country could afford the fees like that. So there's definitely a class element there, and issues in terms of access, privilege to visas like this. But yes, certainly there are limited options for Indians to travel around the world, and I think the student visa is one of them.
At this point, could I request you read some
Sure.
bits from your book, which could probably talk about these things.
Okay. Okay, so one of the stories in this book is called Curry Mancha 2.0, version 2.0. It's kind of a reworking of a previous story called Curry Mancha that I written when there was a spate of violence against Indian students in different parts of Australia. It's a very complex issue. I mean, every Indian in Australia doesn't get beaten up. It's a very complex set of circumstances to do with race and class, the kinds of jobs they were working, the times they were traveling at night, etc., that led to those attacks. And of course, the underlying racist element on which Australia, as a white country, was built. But so this story was written when there was a lot of media coverage from India saying, oh, Australia is racist, and a lot of coverage from the Australian media kind of responding to that. Very stereotypical, sensationalist stuff. And I felt, I was an international student here, it's so much more complex. I wanted to explore that in fiction. And so I wrote this story. It's one of the first, I guess, artistic responses to a really terrible situation that was unfolding. So this is a story about Vincent and this female narrator. They both work in a restaurant. Vincent works as a kitchen hand, washing dishes. He's from Vasai in Bombay. And the narrator works as a waitress. She's a more affluent Bombay Catholic. She works as a waitress, slightly a few rungs higher in the restaurant hierarchy than someone who washes dishes. So anyway, they're traveling on the train. There's a bit of frisson between them. She doesn't know if she's, if he's attracted to her or not. She's wondering how to handle that. And so it so happens that he's beaten up at a train station. She witnesses this. She doesn't do anything. So she's like Pilate who washes her hands. And the train is like Pilate too as it leaves the platform while this young man from India has been beaten up. So anyway, she goes back and to the scene of the attack. She says some things to the attackers. They run away. And Vincent, and this is the moment from which the story, I'm just reading from that moment, when she talks to Vincent. Vincent had lost all his valuables, including his weekly wages that he was supposed to send to India. I told Vincent I would ring 000. 000 is the emergency hotline in Australia. He said, no, why? I'm fine. He got up, dusted his clothes as if we had just been picnicking on Bronte Beach, then buckled over for an instant before standing upright again and spitting blood onto the strip of grass beside the platform. Look at you, I said. You need to go to a doctor. No, I'm okay. I'll just go and put some ice on my face. I have ice at my place. And of course, he's seriously injured, but he's kind of trying to play it down. Because he's also trying to impress this girl, right? Insisting on a particular course of action would suggest that I wanted to get involved with him in ways I didn't want to consider. At least let me call the police if you don't want an ambulance. No, he said, becoming animated. This is my last semester. They will do police check for PR applications, no? Why simply get a bad name? So much I have struggled now. At the end, I don't want trouble, he said. No one was more surprised than I when I heard myself insist, no, the police must be informed. He agreed to go to the cops with me, if only to keep me quiet, I suspected. After all, they were just down the road. I wanted to hold his arm to steady him, but our friendship had not yet bound us in a way that made touch acceptable, even in such a situation. Vincent seemed the type of man for whom a woman was either a lover or a sister. Platonic friendship was a fuzzy, undefined state. I knew this was not the moment to attempt to define this third category. When we got to the police station, we found a notice that said it was unmanned after 8 p.m. There was a buzzer that was meant to connect us to an operator, but after 5 tries and no answer, we decided to go elsewhere. We walked to the cab rank on the other side of the station. Conscious of the physical pain Vincent would be feeling, I offered to walk to the cab rank alone if he would find it easier to sit on the footpath and wait for me to return with a cab. No, girls mustn't walk alone in the night. It's too dangerous, he said. I could not argue with the chivalry of this victim. So he walked slowly. He allowed himself this concession and finally made it to the cab rank in the sharp April air. The sky was battered with stars. The moon was hiding somewhere behind loyal clouds. Our path was lit by a lone street light. After a 15-minute wait, a cab turned up and took us to the police station in the next suburb. It was closed for renovations. And then the story goes on to explore really the relationship between this waitress and this kitchen hand who are, I guess, Indians together in a strange place. But trying to make sense of a friendship, but also trying to make sense of a larger alien culture that's around them. And of course, violence.
Well, only we are talking about mobility, and yesterday I talked a little bit about slowness and how maybe we need to slow down our way of life. And reminds me of questions about time and space. Last decades, in some way, we almost forgot that space exists because we thought that with planes, with internet and so on, we are traveling so fast that space doesn't matter. And about time, that we need to do as fast as possible everything. And this kind of vertigo is putting some distance between us and reality. Because if we want to know better ourselves and the others, we need to give more time to space. Because if you really want to know this room, this complex, this city, you can do that in 5 minutes. Today, we are very concerned about mobility, but we are not exactly concerned about going deeper in relation with things. We are quite superficial in the relation with things. And of course, I'm not saying it's not important to have mobility. For instance, for Indian people, this is a very important issue. It's a sixth part of humanity. But at the same time, exploring what is deeply what is space we are living on, it's very important. I'm not against mobility. I'm only saying that you can transform mobility in a vertigo to spare time, to forget space. For what? Okay, for have a better conditions of life. I can understand, naturally. But what is exactly better conditions of life? What kind of life are we talking about? Selling hamburgers in London, having a better degree in the States? I can understand. This is very. You can increase your life. And what are you doing with this? With your life, with your family life, with your friends. Of course, what I want to say finally is that I feel really we need to slow down today, nowadays, and try to understand that mobility, the value of mobility, is not by itself. It's in the reason of the project, and sometimes we forget that project is beyond questions like profession or economy. They are very important questions, but are not enough.
We have time for one question, maybe. Sorry. Anybody?
If you'll allow me, I guess it's a comment more than anything else. I was interested in the talk on diaspora because, yes, at GALF we've always had that talk about authenticity and Goan, and I like the way this has done this slightly different shift. One of the things, I like the points you mentioned, Jorge, but I think one of the things that didn't come out is why people are mobile. I take what you say, completely. I'm quite mobile myself, and yes, that has its pros and cons, and I'm aware of why I'm doing it, but that doesn't mean that, there's always a balance to be struck, and I think we're not talking about government, infrastructural services, it's way beyond just the political economy. If that's in place, then we have a different argument where we can talk about, the services that are being provided, and then people stay. What I liked about your book run, I was lucky enough to read the GALF blog, and I saw it yesterday. So the first story you quoted Kaustubh was on there, was like, the language is so stylized and so beautiful that in one line you capture so much of the diasporic being that for me, I mean this is a very personal thing, but since Jhumpa Lahiri's Interpreter of Melodies, I have not read something that so encapsulates the diaspora. So I'm glad, I managed to get a copy of your book actually from here, so I'm glad I got that. That's just all I wanted to say here. And I'm sure we could spend a lot more time talking about this subject.
There has always been a very special relationship between Indians and their diaspora. And I'm speaking about Indians in general. It started during the freedom movement. It started, in fact, in the late 19th century. And this is something that you see when you look at how Indian cultural diplomacy operates, how the ICCR operates, how Modi is now operating. And I wanted to ask both of you, one of you in Portugal, one of you in Australia, how you perceive, is there any difference between this very Indian approach to its diaspora as being part of ourselves before? Is there a difference between that and the Goan style? That is there something more Goan, something less, something different?
Thank you, Raj. As you know, I think if you talk about personal experience, in my case in Portugal, you can notice still the difference between religions and between castes. It's terrible, but it's true. What I'm saying is, for instance, in Portugal, Goans, if they are Hindus, Catholics, or Muslims, they are not exactly connected. They are more dealing in their own religious community. And if you are from different castes, it's happening. We can say this is ridiculous because all those things in principle are the best. But finally, when you find reality, it is there. I'm always a little bit perplexed with that situation because I would like to talk with everybody in the same condition because we are everybody in the same condition as humans. And of course, it's not because we are Catholics or Muslims or Hindus or this stupid idea that you have a caste obliging you. Sorry, it's not a stupid idea, but it's I wouldn't like to say it in that way. The best idea, because. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is the reality. We are not connected in the way I think we could be connected, and I'm not feeling enough. I don't know exactly what is the Indian way because I never felt it directly. And if you talk about diplomacy, I don't know exactly what it is, but I would like to know.
What I agree, and what I can, I guess, kind of add to that, to your really interesting question, is that I think language and religion are very strong binders in an alien culture, especially. So in Australia, you have language groups, so the Malayalam Association, the Tamil Association. We don't have a Konkani Association. We have the Mangalorean Association, we have two Goan associations. So I guess it's language and religion that connect. And I think that state of alienation, or the state of being an immigrant, actually kind of makes you want to connect with people of your own tribe, whether it's your language tribe or your religious tribe. So while there are specificities in the various kinds of ways in which immigrants or Indians connect overseas, I guess in general, I personally feel it's language and religion that connect.
I think our time is up, so I think it's been a great panel, and we'll probably make space for the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.